In today's video, we need to talk about Newcastle United because I feel like Newcastle United are one of those teams. When it rains, it pours. When they get one injury, they get another injury. They get another setback, and they get another setback. And they just got going. Tonali had finally come back and integrated in. They were having some luck with some injuries. Lewis Hall showing his importance, and Newcastle were on this unstoppable run. We could see how good that Newcastle starting 11 was. And then the minute they sort of get a bit tired, or a couple of players drop out due to sort of injuries, the cracks start to show again. And it shows that Newcastle have a big depth issue. And it shows that Newcastle are going to have to invest in the summer because the last 3 windows, they've not spent any money. And we've got to talk about it because the problem for Newcastle is their most important game of the season is coming up next weekend. That is the Carabao Cup final against Liverpool, who are the best team in the country right now, unfortunately. And Lewis Hall, who's probably been your best player this last 2 months. I think he's been unbelievable this season, but this last month, the Nottingham Forest game, unbelievable. The Liverpool game did really well when you lost 2-0. Been unbelievable, Lewis Hall. And just before the international break as well. And for me, England's best left back. For me, England's best left back. I think Lewis Skelly will become a midfielder in the future. Lewis Hall. But Lewis Hall will now miss the rest of the 24-25 season after sustaining an injury to a bone in his foot. Following a scan and advice from a specialist, he will undergo surgery before a period of rehabilitation with the club's medical team. Wishing you the best before your surgery, Lewis Hall. So that is a season ender for Lewis Hall. So not only will he miss the Carabao Cup final, but those final games at the end of the season to get Newcastle in Europe, because the race for Europe is so competitive right now. And while Newcastle sort of, with everybody fit, looked like they were going to get Champions League because you need 5th place for Champions League, it's now a place where actually there's a lot of clubs around Newcastle. It's tight. They're on 44 points. They're 2 points off Champions League qualification, which is Chelsea on 46 points. Bournemouth are a point behind them. Brighton are a point behind them. Fulham are 2 points behind them. Villa are 2 points behind them. There's the slump. 6th and 7th is Europa. 8th, I think, is the conference. 5th will be the Champions League if one team goes through to the next round. I think that's pretty much Arsenal sealed. There's that big race for Europe. So not only is he going to miss the cup final, but he's going to miss that. You've got Lewis Hall out injured, Botman's injured, and poor Botman can't get a break because he is your best centre back. And he showed like 2 seasons ago when he said how good of a player he is. And he just can't get a break because he comes back, he looks good, he can't get a break, knees out again. Gordon is suspended, which is a huge blow, and Isak is carrying a knock. But I think with everybody else out, Isak's just going to be made to play through it, which means there's potential for Isak to pick up an injury. So this is what I mean with Newcastle United. When it rains, it pours. Now, I look at Liverpool, when they played Chelsea in the Carabao Cup final, and Liverpool had a lot of injuries, and they ended the pitch with Endo and half of their academy on the pitch, and they beat Chelsea 1-0. So injuries and setbacks, it's a setback, it's a blow, but you're not out of it. It's not over. You can give the fight, you can give the desire, you can surprise Liverpool. Liverpool might think this is easier for them, and Newcastle can rock up with something. You're still going to have players like Isak on the pitch, hopefully, Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, some top players. Livramento can cover left back. If Trippier is fit, he can cover right back. There's still things that Newcastle can do, but then you hear, just a day after announcing Lewis Hall's season's over, it's looking like it could be 8 weeks for Sven Botman, which is almost pretty much a season ender because, well, it's not a season ender, but he'll be back for the last few games of the season. But that's a massive blow because this is the most important period for Newcastle. It's the most important sort of 8 weeks in trying to establish yourself to get Europe, get ahead of the other teams, and win that Carabao Cup and get that much needed trophy for Newcastle United. So this is a huge blow. So we're going to talk about Newcastle and what they can do, because Harvey Barnes, you could play left wing. And, Isak, I'm hoping will be fit because I obviously want Newcastle to win. But if Isak is out, maybe you play Harvey Barnes up top or Wilson up top. You play maybe Joelinton on the wing and Murphy on the wing. It's a significant difference. I'm going to assume if Isak is fit, it'll be Isak up at striker, Joelinton maybe left wing, Murphy right wing. I think Miley will come in, potentially Willock, but I think he's going to go with Miley, Bruno and Tonali. And then Tino left back, Trippier right back, Bernard Shaw as the centre backs, and maybe Dubravka on goal because I think he's been better than Pope. So I think it could be this, depending on Isak. And if Isak's in, he comes in for Wilson or Barnes. Maybe he tries Barnes left wing, but I've always found that Harvey Barnes looks better when he comes off the bench and then he can get the ball and he can cut inside and shoot if there's a bit of open play. So I think he might, and I think as well with Liverpool being the clear favourites, Joelinton might give a bit more defensive stability, can compact the midfield more, come into midfield. You could have Murphy and Isak as split strikers. I think if Barnes will play if Isak is out, but hopefully Isak is all right. I think he has been training. The big question, would it be Willock or Miley? I think Miley brings a bit more creativity at the moment, but I do like both players, but Joe Willock's been hit and miss. But I think that's probably what Newcastle would have to go for in the game against Liverpool. But as I said, massive games coming up. They've got the West Ham game, which is a game you'd expect Newcastle to win, but I think West Ham will be up for it, and Newcastle will be thinking ahead to the final and resting and potentially that. But that's a big game. You'd expect Newcastle to win. If they win, that can give them confidence going into the Liverpool game, which I'm really excited for the Liverpool game, but it could go either way. You've got Newcastle-Brentford on the 2nd of April, which again, Brentford's a difficult game. Leicester, you'd expect Newcastle to win. Man United, I'd probably expect Newcastle to win, saying that United fan. Palace will be a tough game. Villa, again, will be a tough game. In Ipswich, you expect Newcastle to win. But these are crucial games with no Hall, no Botman. There are question marks around Trippier and Isak and Livramento. Gordon's going to miss West Ham, Liverpool, and the Brentford game. And, Isak kind of needs to be fit because no Gordon and Isak is a huge blow. And it really is when it rains, it pours for Newcastle United. We can even talk about, the last few games. Brilliant win over Arsenal, decent win over Birmingham. It was going to be a tough game, that game. But then battered by Man City. Then they start unbelievable versus Forest. You guys in that first half versus Forest was unbelievable. Lewis Hall was man of the match, unbelievable. Isak. And then just for the whole, to concede those goals. Liverpool was not great, but it was clear that Liverpool just had that extra quality over you. And the Brighton game was very meh. I think Isak scored a great goal, but it was just offside, didn't it? And it was one of those that could have gone either way. Maybe if Gordon wasn't sent off, you win that game. And that was Gordon's stupidity. And I think most Newcastle fans I know are more upset about the Gordon red card than actually being knocked out by Brighton in the FA Cup. Because Gordon being out is a massive blow, especially because he's one of those players I think would cause Liverpool problems against Trent, the pace coming in behind. He was so key in that win over Arsenal to get to the final. So I want to talk about Newcastle and sort of, where they need to improve going forward, because I think they've had this issue last season. They were unbelievable at periods last season. They beat PSG 4-1 at home. They showed their quality in the big games, and then they drop off, and they got quite bad last season. And I think it shows when everybody's fit, Newcastle shows something. But the minute there's a bit of injuries, they drop off, and it shows the levels they can reach. But they clearly need depth. Now, for me, the most important position is a centre-back. I think, Shah is ageing. Burn is ageing, and there's a lack of mobility in the back line at times, lack of pace. They need to use a new young centre-back for depth and age issues, but also they want someone that's young, that's mobile. I think centre-back's the most important. Gay and Hoyson are probably the two players I highlight. Murillo of Forest is a good addition. Branthwaite's a good addition. You could look at someone like Cato because he could cover left-back and left centre-back because you obviously did let Lloyd Kelly go, and this could be a long-term replacement for Burn, because I know Burn can play left-back, but Burn at left-back, you don't want him at left-back. Burn at left-back against Mohamed Salah, you don't want to see that. Another option for fullback, especially if Trippier leaves, they're going to need another option for fullback cover. I think you're limited in terms of fullback cover. A right wing, Murphy, great, but better options around. I think priority centre back, then it will be right winger, then it will be another fullback option for depth. Maybe a Wilson replacement to back up Isak. If you do get Mbeumo, he can play striker and right wing. So if something happened to Isak, Mbeumo could play striker, Murphy could play right wing, I guess, and then others depending on departures. But there is questions around goalkeepers and Pope. I do like Nick Pope, but I don't think he's been great lately, and I think the limitations with his feet are showing. And maybe even another midfielder for depth, especially if someone like a Willock left. You obviously lost Elliot Anderson as well. Maybe another midfielder for depth. So when I look at Newcastle and who I'd sign, the first player I would sign is Mbeumo. 15 goals and 4 assists this season, 9 goals and 6 assists the season before with a lot of injuries, or a few injuries, missed a few games for injuries, 9 goals and 8 assists the season before. He's proven to have output, and the better Brentford have got, the better his output have got. And I think Newcastle being a good attacking side, he will get that output at Newcastle. He can play striker, he can play right wing. One thing I like about him is he knows when to pass, he knows when to shoot. He's not a selfish player. His decision making is good, his runs is good. He's good at dribbling, he uses his physicality well, but he's one of those players that's good in transition, and Newcastle like to be dangerous in transition. But also, if you've got to break a team down and slow down play, and Mbeumo's very good at using his body and navigating in the tight spaces. And he's one of those players that if Newcastle didn't have a good game, he could get a goal out of nowhere and be that moment's player to win Newcastle a game. I think he'd be brilliant. I think centre-back, Hoyson's got a 50 million release clause. Is going to be a big battle for him. Gay could be available for 50 to 60 million with his contract running down. It's going to be a big battle for him. But these are the two centre-backs you want in England right now. Both young, Hoyson considerably younger, proven in the Premier League, physically good, good on the ball, good in the back line. Gay's probably slightly better as of now, but Hoyson will probably become the better player. It's a big battle. I think Hoyson, there'll be a lot of competition. It will be a difficult deal to do. But Newcastle will get one of these two players. That is the player for your backline. You could argue you need 2 centre-backs just because of Botman's injuriness and, Burn and Shaw ageing. But I do think that Botman, if he can just get over this injury, he wasn't injury-prone before that, maybe he can stay fit. But that would be an unbelievable addition. And I said this, about 2 months ago. Huijsen, pound for pound, could go down as one of the best signings ever. He's dominant in the air, leading the league in defensive duel success rate, and dealt with world-class striker like Isak with ease today. I said this after the Bournemouth game versus Newcastle. At 19 years old, he's already physically bossing it in the Prem and only cost 12 million. Beyond his physicality, Huijsen is excellent on the ball, capable of defending large spaces, covering wide channels, tracking players effectively, and going one-on-one with ease. His reading of the game and positional awareness are underrated, adding another dimension to his game. His ceiling is incredibly high. Liverpool could very well target him as a long-term replacement for Van Dijk. That's how I feel about Huijsen. But Gay's a great option, Braithwaite, Murillo, and I did even think Hato of Ajax. Now, I have a feeling that Newcastle could look at goalkeepers. I think De Bruyne's been better than Pope recently. And I think with John Garcia, there's obviously James Trafford, but I think he's still raw and he had some limitations in the Premier last season. I think John Garcia, from what I've seen of him this season, looks a bit more experienced, a bit more ready-made. I did a bit of research on him recently because he was linked to United and he can claim his crosses and he dominates his box well. He's a good shot stopper, good on the ball, and he's had a really, really good season. And this could be an option out there that maybe you could pick him up for a decent fee from La Liga rather than overspending on an English player like James Trafford. So that was just my thoughts. So summarising my thoughts on everything, you've got, if you brought in Isak, you brought in Huijsen, and you brought in Garcia, this is what you'd look like next season. But I definitely look at it and say you need depth at fullbacks. I think Trippier could go. I think Wilson could go. And potentially another midfielder because I think the midfield is good, but there's question marks around Willock's fitness. Potentially another midfielder there as well. But I think that's a much better squad. But I think Newcastle are going to need more than 3 signings. These are the 3 signings I've added in. Mbeumo, Huijsen and Garcia. I think we're going to need 5 signings, one being a fullback and the other one being either another midfielder or another attacker in terms of a striker for depth. That's what I honestly think. But just to add 3 signings, you can see how much stronger it is, but you do have issues with injuries. You could even look at 2 centre-backs. Newcastle fans, how are you feeling right now about the end of the season? Are you a bit nervous now with these injuries, particularly Lewis Hall and Botman? I think Liverpool are favourites in the cup final, or are you sort of going to see how you do versus West Ham and take it as it goes? Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching. Bye.